Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Lots of big breaking news this morning with regards to the Supreme Court, with regards to potential conflict in Ukraine. Some actual good news, weird silver lining, possibly from the supply chain crisis. We will bring you those details. Also some details about Amazon sponsoring a high school curriculum.
This is nuts stuff.
They went so far as to paint like their logos in the classroom. It's very disturbing, but also not totally out of line with history of those sorts of things in this country. A little bit of a battle between Neil Young and Joe Rogan and Spotify. We'll give you all of the latest there. Also very excited to talk to Johan Hari. He has a new book out. Previous books he's had, Chasing the Scream, about the drug war. He had another book about depression and what's causing it and the drugs that are typically used to treat it. His new book that we're going to talk to him about today is about how your attention has been stolen by a variety of actors, not just tech, a variety of sort of modern cultural factors. So we'll dig into all of that. Really interesting book. I just finished it actually this morning. But we wanted to start with the big breaking news with regards to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's right. Also, for our premium people, we're very sorry about the shortened show from the last time. We're having an extra long AMA. So stay tuned for that over the weekend. Let's start now with the Supreme Court. This is big stuff. Leaked news. Let's put it up there on the screen. Justice Stephen Breyer, he is going to be retiring at the end of the term in June, Krystal. So June is going to be a pretty wild month here. We're going to have the end of the term. Justice Breyer is going to retire. Then we're going to have to deal with the confirmation. That also is the time when Roe versus Wade is very likely to be decided as well, on top of a bunch of other landmark cases. So it's going to be a fun time, as they say, and it's going to be interesting at least to watch how that all shakes out. Of course, though, there's been some interesting gossip being floated in Washington, which the White House is trying to tamp down. The idea being that Kamala Harris is so unpopular, and Biden has now boxed himself in saying, I must nominate a black woman. Well, two birds, one stone, right? Take the vice president, shunt her off to the Supreme Court. She gets a fancy little robe for the rest of her life. Most of us never have to see her face anymore because the Supreme Court doesn't allow cameras. It's win, 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 as Michael Scott once said. But the White House is shooting that down, at least for right now. Let's take a listen.
Thank you. When you were asked about the vice president possibly being selected as a Supreme Court nominee, you said you're not going to speak to any considerations. Does that mean she is being considered?
Again, Peter, I'm not going to speak to the reports of a Supreme Court justice retirement that hasn't been announced.
So theoretically, would someone who's
theoretically, I do like that you preface it. I appreciate that.
Just wondering, hypothetically, theoretically, would someone who was an attorney general of a large state and who served with many key Senate votes be an attractive candidate to the president for an open Supreme Court seat?
I see what you did there, Peter. But the president has every intention, as he said before, of running for re-election, and for running for re-election with Vice President Harris on the ticket as his partner. But again, I will just reiterate that I have nothing more to offer in terms of specifics or information on the reports this morning.
Okay there, Chris. So she's shooting it down for now. I mean, everything is always, not happening until it's happening.
Yeah.
Look, it's probably just fan fiction on my part, watching too much West Wing or whatever. But, I think it actually would be a very smart move. If you think about it, because also, as I believe, in terms of replacing a vice president can happen through Congress. They have majorities right now.
Yeah.
They did this with replacing Spiro Agnew, and that's how Gerald Ford eventually became president. So it's not outside completely of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of why it's not going to happen is because it would be so obvious what they were doing, of just like, this lady's really unpopular and we cannot have her on the ticket, but we also can't take her off because of identity concerns. So what are we going to do? All right, let's just put her on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Kind of undermines, any argument about the importance of Supreme Court, et cetera, if you're just using it to solve your temporary political problem. But the fact that these rumors have been swirling, and this has been swirling around DC actually for months now, tells you everything about what a dire political circumstance they are in right now. You've got Joe Biden, who is extremely unpopular, but his VP, who would be the logical choice to succeed him, of course, is even more unpopular. And so the fact that they would even float this idea, that this would even be circulating in the bloodstream of Washington as a potential solution to solve their political ailments, is quite telling in and of itself. But just, let's not go crazy because I think it's very unlikely that ultimately they would go in that direction. There are other names that are being circulated. We can throw this tear sheet up on the screen. So Biden is poised to announce first wave of nominations to reshape U.S. courts. District Court Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has just been appointed to a key appeals court. People are saying that could signal that she is next in line to possibly be moved up to the Supreme Court. She's got a number of things going for her. She's young. She's only 50 years old.
Yeah.
She's a former public defender. And I haven't dug in deep on all of the, rulings and where she stands on a variety of things, but it seems like from what I have read so far, she's pretty good on the issues I care most about, which is labor unions. She's issued some labor-friendly rulings. She was actually a former clerk also to Stephen Breyer, so, that may make some sense. And then the other thing she has going for her is the fact that she was just recently confirmed to the D.C. Circuit back in June by a vote of 53 to 44. All 50 Democrats plus 3 Republicans got on board with her confirmation. Those 3 Republicans were Susan Collins, Lindsey Graham, and Lisa Murkowski. So young, seems to have, a judicial philosophy that Democrats would broadly feel comfortable with, and, fits the identity criteria that's been laid out.
Yes.
And, they look at that, okay, who voted for them recently? Because that just makes it harder for those 3 Republicans and for the Democrats to say, oh, we were good with her in June, but now suddenly we have a major issue with
That
her.
is still going to be a problem, though. Lindsey Graham already came out and said, hey, look, you guys made us do it, so you're going to have to do it with all these votes. Lindsey was one of the 3 Republicans who went ahead and voted for her.
But
I do have a strike. Oh,
Manchin and Sinema are going to go along with
I think you're right.
I mean, Manchin in particular, he kicks up a fuss on these domestic economic issues to serve his corporate donors, but he's a pretty reliable vote when it comes to these sort of confirmations.
Yeah, I asked around, and apparently Manchin has never been a real thorn in the side whenever it comes to judicial issues. So it's just not the same political situation. I do have one strike against her, though, Krystal, which is that she's related by marriage to Paul Ryan.
Red flag there.
Her husband is the twin brother of Ryan's brother-in-law, so related by marriage. But any sort of connection to Paul Ryan is just frankly a bridge too far.
It's a little suspect.
For me. Apparently he respects her. That's another red flag, in my opinion. Look, it's Supreme Court fights. In this particular one, obviously it is the biggest news, and that's why we chose to lead the show and to cover it. But people need to understand that this is not going to be the same existential level fight that we saw here in D.C. around Gorsuch and around Justice Kavanaugh. And the reason is actually pretty simple, which is that this is not a swing seat. We have 6-3. We also have a liberal justice retiring, being replaced. It's actually much more of a box check for the Democratic coalition for Biden, and specifically for Jim Clyburn, who forced him to say that he would nominate a black woman to the Supreme Court. I don't know why, judicial stuff doesn't matter more, but whatever.
Well, sorry to pause.
Yes.
I think what really happened here is Biden was not planning on picking a black woman to be his vice president. I think he probably wanted to pick Amy Klobuchar.
I didn't think of that.
And then when she was sort of implicated in what happened with George Floyd, that put her off the table. But he'd already made his pledge of don't worry, we've got you. We're putting a black woman on the Supreme Court when Amy was taken off the table. So I think that's this is an educated guess based on some reporting of what I think actually happened here.
That actually seems to make sense.
Yeah.
Breyer himself is an odd cat. I mean, he's 81 years old. From Matt Stoller's writing, he's probably one of the single worst justices whenever it comes to corporate power. He never became an icon the way that RBG did, or even really, if you talk to legal nerds, which unfortunately I'm friends with a lot of them, a lot of them actually really like Justice Kagan, for example. Breyer never held the same level of esteem amongst the liberal intelligentsia within the law world. And he has also been pretty pissed off that all these people on Twitter keep asking him to retire. And so from what I understand, he's not very happy about the way that this all went down. We have some reporting on that. Let's go ahead and put that on the screen. Multiple sources say that Justice Breyer was not planning to announce his retirement today. They describe him as upset with how this has played out. We will await any official notice from his office and or the SCOTUS Public Information Office. Justice Breyer is actually scheduled to be at the White House House today with President Biden. So we'll see whether an announcement is forthcoming. My guess is that he probably wants to keep everybody on their toes. And also, like, he's still got a job to do, at least until June. And there's some obviously
very significant decisions coming.
Huge decisions that are coming down the pipeline. So Supreme Court politics is one of those things where it really matters until it doesn't, and it's also hard in order to parse. I would say in this case, the confirmation fight, yes, people are going to kick up a dust, and people are going to try and dig up something. Like, we'll see whether it happens, but the stakes are just not as high as a 5-4 decision or a 6-3 like it was with Amy Coney Barrett. In this particular case, it was always going to be Biden was going to get one person to put on the Supreme Court, almost certainly a liberal. Breyer doing what RBG refused to do and, stepping down while there is a Democratic president.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think that's an important point, that there was a learning that occurred with RBG, that she held on and wouldn't retire and then ends up, passing away at a time that allows Trump to ultimately pick her replacement. The court, any illusion that the court is some above the fray, above politics institutions,
BS.
It's long gone. This is a partisan institution concerned with, their own ideologies and with, in some cases, especially Justice John Roberts, preserving the institution of the court. So kind of trying to figure out how far can we go in service of our ideology. So ultimately the fact that, RBG didn't make a move under Obama when she could have left Democrats in a bad position with regards to the balance of the court. Stephen Breyer clearly took that learning. And let's also throw this in the mix, which is the fact that he's retiring now before the midterms is also an indication of how everybody here is feeling about Democratic prospects in the midterms. Because, you don't just need a Democratic president, you need to have a Senate that is ultimately going to back your confirmation, as we saw previously under Obama. So that's also why he's doing this right now at kind of the last possible moment when a confirmation can occur while Democrats are still firmly, sort of tenuously in control of the Senate. So I think that is the other piece of this. You mentioned Matt Stoller's piece, which I recommend to you guys that you go and read at his Substack Big. Subscribe there. He does a really great job breaking these things down. The depth of knowledge that he has on antitrust is just astonishing. The history and the depth of specific knowledge. He's an incredible resource. But he goes back through Justice Breyer's orientation and ideology with regards to antitrust, tracks it from the beginning through to when he becomes a Supreme Court justice. And what you come to realize is that while there are very clear splits on the court when it comes to social issues, on issues of corporate power and labor, that split has not been nearly so clear. And oftentimes, in fact, you've had a near unanimous or actually unanimous majority in favor of strengthening, furthering corporate power. He points in particular to a decision that Justice Breyer was part of with regards to Verizon that he actually helped to shape, which not only said, yes, Verizon, you can have monopoly power, but actually bizarrely made the case that their having monopoly power was a good thing for competition and strengthened anti-monopoly somehow. The fact that they were a monopoly actually was good for anti-monopoly. That was the bizarre and convoluted logic of this decision that Breyer, again, helped to shape and sign on to and was part of, I think it was a 9-0 unanimous decision on the Supreme Court, which shows you that, yes, the Republicans on the court are the most reliable sort of backstops for corporate power, but RBG had bad decisions. Breyer had a bad ideology with regards to antitrust and furthered that sort of bipartisan corporate power consensus.
Yep, there you go.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.